allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I jumped ahead of myself and gotten the scouts up. I did want to have a moment of silence. We lost a good Lincolnite over the weekend. Lou Schick passed away. He was a good guy. He ran a department store downtown for a while. Worked at Kroger's. He was a good family man, a good neighbor, just all around good guy. And he passed away unexpectedly over the weekend. So if we could have a moment of silence in his memory, I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to our consent agenda, on which we have several things. We have the payment of bills. We have approval of the minutes of the public hearings on June 16th, 2014, July 7th, 2014, and July 7th, 2014 for the two bond hearings, as well as the regular city council meetings for June 16th and July 7th, 2014. Approval of the fast-track demolition of property at 412 North Oglesby Avenue by Jim Moody. Advice and consent to a mayoral appointment of Christy Powell to the Abraham Lincoln Tourism Bureau of Logan County. Approval of petition for closing of various streets for the Harvest of Talents 5K run on Saturday, October 25th, beginning at 7 a.m. And approval of a petition to erect a sign on the vacant lot at the corner of North Kickapoo and Pekin Street for the Harvest of Talents through October 27th, 2014. Alderman Anderson.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second motion.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second. Any discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Mrs. Sworn?
Yes.
Mrs. Tibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Hanaki?
Yes.
Mrs. Neitzel?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donohue?
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That motion and that consent agenda is approved on 8-0 vote. Down under ordinances and resolutions, 6B, we have the ordinance resolution for FY 2014-15. Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe the intention was, based on the workshop meeting, to table this to an adjourned meeting on the 29th. As you know, this must be available for inspection in the office of the city clerk for 10 days prior to the time which you approved. That would be the 28th. Our next workshop meeting is the 29th, and I would ask that we table that to that adjourned meeting on the 29th.
So moved.
Second.
Alderman Horn. Okay. I saw Alderman Tibbs nodding her head. The voice came from Alderman Horn. Alderman Horn moves and Alderman Cooper seconds to lay this appropriation ordinance on the table until our adjourned meeting on July the 29th. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mrs. Tibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Hanaki?
Yes.
Mrs. Neitzel?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donohue?
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
Okay, that is laid on the table on 8-0 votes. Down under reports, 9A, the city treasurer's report for June 2014. Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, Mayor. You've all received copies of this report. Most of it's self-explanatory. I won't go into a lot of detail. I would like to point out our video gaming tax of $1,755 for the month of June, which is one of our higher months for that. Also received a small parking lot grant for the library in addition to the ones that we received earlier in the amount of $2,000. I did want to call your attention to, there's an attachment which explains this further, the telecommunications tax, which we received. Now normally, some of the taxes that we receive that are paid to us through the Department of Revenue, they vary considerably from year to year in the number of months we receive. This one isn't like that. We receive 12 months worth of liability in every fiscal year. If you look at the attachment there, you see so far to date we've received $94,000. And if you look back 2008, 2009, it was $455,000. Recent years, it's gone up and down a little bit, but it's been less. Initially, we made a projection for this year of $411,370, which is probably about what we would have received, except that we received a notification from the Department of Revenue regarding temporary reduction in that. And rather than try to explain it out, it's brief, I'll just read it to you. It says, as a result of a federal class action lawsuit, a large telecommunications carrier was ordered to seek refunds from the states on behalf of customers that were charged telecommunication taxes on transactions that were not properly taxable under federal and state laws. The department has recently resolved litigation related to the Illinois transactions. This has caused the state to refund millions of dollars worth of telecommunications excise taxes that were collected from customers and remitted to the state, but were never properly taxable. A significant portion of the state refund involves proceeds that were distributed to local governments. As a result, Department of Revenue must recover these proceeds from the local governments that receive telecommunications excise tax distributions on non-taxable transactions. In accordance with confidentiality provisions outlined in 35 ILCS, etc., we are unable to disclose additional information. The department understands that many local governments would be adversely affected if the entire amount of these distributions was offset from their monthly distribution in a short period of time. In an effort to minimize the impact of these adjustments, this adjustment to your local government, the department will adjust your distributions in 12 monthly installments totaling $58,764.41, as follows: 11 payments of $4,897.03, and one final payment of deduction of $4,897.08. And it goes on to explain that these will be deducted from our monthly telecommunications tax distribution. This will begin next month in August and will continue for a year. So based on that, I reduced the amount of the projection for telecommunications tax receipts, as the handout explains to you, from $411,370 down to $352,605. Some of this, of course, will carry over into the beginning of the next year, since it's carried out over a year. So it'll be 9 months this year and three months next year. I think that's really all I have to say about it, unless there are any questions. And like I said, the rest of the report is, for the most part, self-explanatory.
Just a question, once we get past the 12 months, where are we at that point? Or is the new level this 352, or should we expect it to be back up around 400,000?
It should be back up around the 410,000, somewhere around there. But 9 months of this will come out of this year, and so we won't probably see that in the next fiscal year, because there'll be 3 months of deductions of approximately $4,897.
So what was inappropriately taxed,
Right.
that has been fixed? I mean,
Well, we assume that's the case, that they're not continuing to, I'm assuming that's it.
okay.
Yeah, they have calculated this, so I think it's safe to assume it's all been taken care of.
Okay. Any questions?
Just the total amount that we're getting reduced is what again?
$58,764.41.
And that's being taken off partially this year and partially next year?
Right.
So why is the total amount being subtracted from this year's budget?
Well, this is a month of liability, not necessarily a month of distribution.
Okay,
Right. I think
someone's gonna have to help explain that to me. Why, I mean, if we know that it's not gonna come out until some of it is not going to come out of things until next year's budget, why does this year's budget reflect the loss?
The
Okay.
entire loss.
The entire loss. I understand the lion's share of the loss, but
Okay, so you're taking 45, almost 47,000. You're right, it should be about $5,000 less.
I'm asking.
No, that's a
I'm
good
asking.
question. So, that's a good point.
Yeah, 3 months. That'll carry over.
Right, that won't be, so I mean, it's still gonna go down, but it's still gonna be higher than 352.
49. Yes, it'll be something a little bit less than that.
That's fine.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. 9B, see clerk's report for some,
All right,
there you go.
I passed out the sewer report, and I just want to tell you that we've had positive comments regarding the paper statements, and hope you have too. And we have several customers taking advantage of the 10% discount that's per the ordinance. So that's a positive. We've down to 22% of the original money that has been left to be collected, which that's exciting. Approximately 22 properties are left to be collected on that original amount. If you remember, that was the original balance was $172,631.39. So we're still working on that. And then also, I wanted to remind everyone on the Illinois Municipal League Conference that's scheduled for September 18th through the 20th. I sent out a memo to each of you, and if you could get those forms back to me no later than August the 12th, if not before, if you know you're planning on attending. You'll be responsible for your own travel arrangements, whether it's by train or by car. So if you got any questions, let me know. As soon as I get everybody's, arrangements back, I'll get those submitted. Do you have any questions?
Okay, thank you. Under 9C, department head reports, you should have written reports from the police, fire, sewer, building and safety, and street and alley departments. So if you have any questions, you can address those to the appropriate department head. Down under 10, new business and communications, we've dealt with 10A. 10B is approval to hire a police officer from the lateral hire list. Chief Beasley?
Yes, I'm requesting that we you give permission to hire an officer from the lateral hire list to replace Deputy Chief Garrett, who is leaving us.
Second.
Alderman Tibbs moves and Alderman Horn seconds to approve this. Any discussion? Questions?
Do we need to clarify that they wouldn't be taking the deputy chief's position? Just for
They're-
people watching,
No, this is just to replace an officer.
a man.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, this will be a patrol officer, not the Deputy Chief. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, I just didn't want anybody to think we were just gonna be on the on there.
How many people do we have on the lateral list?
I don't have the list right here in front of me. I'm estimating 7 or 8.
Any further discussions, questions? Not roll call, please.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mrs. Tibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Hanaki?
Yes.
Mrs. Neitzel?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donohue?
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That motion is approved on an 8-0 vote. Down under 10C, endorsement of recommendation of the Unified Organizations Committee, UCO, PLC, and agreement to participate in the organization. Alderman O'Donoghue and I went over the PowerPoint presentation from the UOC and the process that was laid out through consensus through that. If we could have a motion and a second to approve that recommendation and to then continue to participate in the process, we could have discussion on that.
So moved.
Second.
Alderman Bauer moves, Alderman Cooper seconds to endorse that recommendation. Discussion on this, Alderman Tibbs?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be voting no on this for the simple reason that this is united. This is all of us coming together to make something very right for our city and our county. And until everybody can decide whether to come aboard or not, and if they have chosen not to at this point, I think we need to do a little bit more homework and find out the why. And I do know that there were letters of concern that were not shared among us, but shared with the committee. And I think that probably we need to look into some of those concerns. And as far as I'm concerned, this is us together, the city and the county, working together for the betterment of all of us. And I want us all to be united in this. So I am not going to, until everything is brought to the table and everybody can be happy about this and go together and work with it, then I will be voting yes. But until then, my vote will be no.
Just to clarify, each of the organizations did provide participants in the last round of the UOC, and the recommendation that came out of that group was a consensus recommendation. The consensus was reached by all of those present. Alderman Bauer?
And as much as I would hope that at some point in time we're in a kumbaya kind of state where everyone would agree, I don't think we're all going to agree on our own city matters, as well as getting a large constituency of Lincoln and Logan County to always agree on everything. So I think that it's a great idea that we'd like everybody to be on the same page, but I don't know that will happen. I do feel like this organization has the opportunity to serve Logan County better than it ever has. I speaking outside of Lincoln, and I know I sit on Lincoln City Council, but I really do feel that the constituents of Logan County will benefit by this in leaps and bounds more than they ever have. And so, although I do understand where your concerns are and the fact that there have been those who've chosen now not to support it, all the research and everything that I've been a part of in this process seems to resonate with me that this can only be a positive change for our community. So
That's what I'm afraid of, that not everyone got to read the letters of concerns and the reasons of why the county has chosen to set aside at this point. And I don't like the attitude that, well, we're just going to go ahead, and then if you decide that you like it, you can come aboard. No. I think that we need to do this united, together, to start out with, together. And let's find and work this thing out a little bit more. Talk it out and find out just what is the holdup on it. And that's where I am with it. And I discussed this with the mayor, and so my vote would be no for the concerns of my constituents.
We did discuss it and we chose to disagree. Any further discussion?
Well, I think the city should show the county that we are for this. And I think in the city showing that we are for this, that the county may go ahead and rethink it and join us together. I think that's where the togetherness has to be. But I think we need to show them first, Johnny, that we are for it, and they need to come along too. It's the only way. But if we vote no too, then we're the same as them. We gotta vote yes for this so we can bring the county.
That's
In
the
my
point.
opinion.
They know that we want them to come along, and they have voted no. And so
Well,
That
they
is-
have a chance, they have another chance to rethink it and come forward.
well,
So
I don't find it funny at all, or any.
I'm not
I just-
smiling.
No. I know that. I understand that. No, you are. You've got a very straight mind, Marty, with the city too, as well as I know the rest of us do too. But we do have something that we have to put together right to have this take off the way we want it to take off. We can't be halfway on this. We have to be together. And that's what I think that our mayor has tried to do. He's put a lot of time and effort in many hours, and we have too. But we want what's good for us combined.
Do you or Tom know the reason that the county does not want to come along?
No, I wasn't at the county meeting, so.
And I would not care to speculate.
Did you read the letters of concern, by the way?
I read a single letter from a single county board member.
Okay.
And I disagreed with it when it was presented.
Was it answered?
It was answered, yes.
It was.
Those were all, I mean, that was passed on to the members of the UOC.
I'm sorry, it was addressed at the UOC committee meeting.
Right.
Whether or not the county board representatives came back and answered it to that county board member, I couldn't tell you.
You don't know if that
I could not tell you now.
board member was then sent back?
Correct. I do know that the issues were addressed at the UOC.
I think this is the best thing for the city, the county moving forward, and again, it was unified, coming out of the UOC. Every member that was there agreed by consensus that this was the best way to proceed. So that's what we have before us this evening. So any further discussion? Do you have an issue relating to the treasurer's office on this?
Well, in part, yes.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, to answer the question that was asked earlier, if you look at the July 19th edition of the Courier, there's a real good story about the county board voting this down. And in that, several of the county board members are quoted as to why they voted against that. So
Were you at the meeting, Mr. Treasurer?
No, but I can read, and I did.
So again, as it relates to the office of the treasurer, what do you have to say?
Yeah, well, I do. Thank you for bringing that up. If we look at the budget in the past several years on these various organizations that we've contributed to, look at the year 2011-2012, $53,333. Fiscal year 12-13, $61,458. Last year, not including what they spent on the retail study, $61,500. This year, depending on whether you believe the handout or you believe the budget, the handout says we're going to spend $60,000. The budget says we're going to spend $81,000. So I'm assuming that it's somewhere in between there. When this was brought up a few months ago, it was argued that this was going to be, in effect, streamlining this organization. Well, going from 61,000 to somewhere between 60 and 81,000 does not strike me as streamlining. In addition to that, I think the fact that this is reduced in size, it's a self-perpetuating board, just results in less accountability to the municipalities that participate in this, including our city, and it results in less accountability to the taxpayer. And as a result of that, I would ask you to consider what the county board, what our county board did last week, and as your treasurer, and as a taxpayer in this city, which I think is also very important. For the reasons I just described, I would urge you to vote against this.
Mr. Treasurer, you sat here during the budget discussions. You could have raised me this question. You chose not to.
Well, there was no endorsement of it at this time.
I asked you whether you had a comment with regard to the treasurer's office. You inserted your personal opinion. So thank you for sharing your personal opinion.
You're quite welcome, Mr. Mayor.
I think him too.
Don't count on there being lots
Yes.
more opportunities. Okay, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
No.
Mrs. Tibbs?
No.
Mr. Hanaching?
Yes.
Mrs. Neitzel?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donohue?
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
Okay, roll call being 6-2, that motion is approved, as is that recommendation. Any announcements? We do need to have an executive session for under 2C1 personnel and 2C11 litigation.
Make a motion pursuant to the Open Meetings Act to go into executive session pursuant to 2C1 personnel and 2C11 pending or probable litigation. Second the motion.
Okay, roll call please.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mrs. Tibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Hanaching?
Yeah.
Mrs. Neitzel?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donohue?
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Okay, we will take a short recess and reconvene in closed session.
The Fricke Calvert Schrader Partnership has serviced the Lincoln and Mount Pulaski areas for 25 years. When in need, turn to Larry, Chuck, or Dennis to incorporate your lasting memories. That's Fricke Calvert Schrader. Remembering love, sharing loss, and celebrating life.
There are lots of credit cards out there. Lots and lots. The SEFCU Visa credit card stands out. No annual fees, great rates, incredible rewards options, and local service. Switch to SEFCU and get the Visa credit card you'll treasure.
Apply for your SEFCU Visa Rewards credit card today. Just stop in, call, or apply online at SEFCU.com. Isn't it time you switched?